my time to review all my space knowledge. It's funny because this time you didn't introduce me as a SpaceX fan. So now we're going to spend the entire episode talking about spaceflight.
I mean, it's interesting. So, going back to SpaceX, though, they are not allowed to launch. They have like a Starship ready for test, but they're not allowed to launch because the government is worried about the birds, which is understandable. And I'm pretty sure they're going to be able to launch it pretty soon. So I'm not too worried about that. But how realistic do you think this Elon timeline is? Like in 4 years, we're going to have crewed missions to Mars. How do you think that's actually happening?
No, because I know launch tables, they always slip. It's not as unreasonable as it sounds. Especially, so again, the next thing that's going to happen for Starship, they're going to do another suborbital test. Then they're going to have to try catching the boosters. And once they get that stuff down, next thing will be the refueling. And again, the refueling test is going to be the big one. And I'm guessing they're going to try to refuel. Well, either they're going to do a mini refueling test with just 2 starships, or they're going to try refueling 1 starship with however many starship launches that takes. Or eventually they're going to have to do that anyway. They need to figure out how many starship launches does it take to refuel a starship in orbit completely. And again, once you have a starship that's in orbit, you might as well launch it somewhere. Why not? Unless it's already failing catastrophically, slowly shutting down, or you've already lost control. Why not just launch it somewhere? So that part's not unreasonable. Even the human. So again, once you've got the whole space launch system, you know you can refuel it in orbit. You could launch humans pretty soon. You obviously need to design the entire Starship interior. You need to figure out spacing, toiletry, and everything else the occupants are going to need, and how much supply, how much water. Well, if we just suddenly return to like the 60s mindset of U.S. space flight, where Kennedy held this big speech about going to the moon, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. If whoever's going to be the next president of the United States comes out, holds that speech, and says, within my term of presidency, we're going to launch some humans to Mars. It's going to be a one-way mission. There's basically a 0 or 1% chance that they're going to make it back alive. But we're going to launch it in 4 years, and we're going to spend as much of our national resources as it takes. Yeah, you could do it. But no, unless that happens, which is basically very unlikely to happen, unless China comes out tomorrow and says, actually, we've got a fully working Mars rocket and we're going to launch it tomorrow. Unless that happens, it's obviously not quite realistic. It's just, it's not even that much of a problem of designing stuff or finding volunteers or training volunteers or designing the Starship interior or everything else. It's certification. That's the big problem. You need to certify every single component of Starship for a human launch. And if you had the 60s mindset of saying, we believe this rocket is probably maybe 50% of the time safe enough for human launches. And if you go in with that mindset, again, you could do it, but we try not doing that stuff anymore, even though basically the whole Apollo, Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo series of launches, that was just very lucky for the Americans. The Americans only lost 1 Apollo crew. That was Apollo 1, obviously. And they didn't die during a launch, but they died during testing on the ground in their capsule because of the oxygen environment. Then a spark went off and they burned alive in their capsule, that was horrible. Yeah. But that's the only, until Challenger, that was all the humans they lost during their space flight, which was pretty insane.
I see. Well, I wish Elon and the whole SpaceX crew good luck, because like what they're doing has never been done before, right? Like refueling a rocket in space and going to Mars, like that's brand new stuff. Like going to Mars with like this massive of a ship, like those are things completely new for the human race.
It's ambitious, and
it's ambitious, yes.
That's why people like Elon Musk, because he's ambitious. He's one of the few drivers out there who really tries to be ambitious. And I mean, at this point, he's got a fair bit of street cred because people obviously laughed at him when he said, "Oh, we're gonna have our boosters land and we're gonna reuse our boosters." I mean, there were huge arguments from spaceflight experts and people from ULA and the like at the time saying that's completely unrealistic. That's never going to work. You're going to have so much. There's going to be so much damage on your booster after a single launch. You're not going to be able to reuse any of it. Well, I was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, science fiction is just science fiction till it becomes science fact, right? It has been
Exactly.
with that like that for every technology.
Yeah, unless it's stuff like I don't know, genetic memory or psychokinesis or stuff like that.
I mean,
that's
even
pretty unrealistic.
even that I think would happen. Like, just take for example Neuralink, what they're developing right now. It's in like early stages, of course, but imagine version 15, version 20. What prevents them to actually implementing like communication